Thank you for inviting me again. I was here, I think, a month ago. And Chair, as I said, I just want to thank your committee for what you're doing. I've already received the outcome of the other petition, which had brought me here last time, and will implement the resolutions of this committee and the House. And thank you very much for what you're doing for our country as a committee. On this occasion, Chair, I've been asked to provide this committee with a statement on the situation of the pollution of Earth River and what the government chemist, which falls under the Minister of Interior, has done, could do about the situation in Earth River. At the outset, I want to say I provided a signed statement dated 14th August 2023, which has been provided to your committee. So my response will be based on that statement that has already been circulated. Honorable Chair, the situation in Earth River is one of the most serious environmental hazards that I know of in our country. I say so because there have been numerous reports, studies, some of them have been done by research students of various universities, masters and PhD students who have done research on the chemical concentration and levels of pollution in Earth River.
Maybe Waziri, allow me to interject for a minute. I know you have a long history and a deep history with this house as a member, and also in your new office. And I know most of the things we are discussing may be heavy in terms of consumption by the public. I would want concurrence between the committee and yourself, whether we are okay to have the media all through, or they can give us some space at some point.
Based on what I am presenting here, I think we have no problem with the media, because some of the studies that have been done are already even in the public domain. And I'll try as much as possible. If there is a requirement, we will make the application at that point. But again, it's up to the committee to make the decision on the presence of media.
Based on your history in the House, you've been a member, and you can judge as much as we can judge. And I know you are so measured, so I'll go with your decision. So it's okay. Let's move on.
Thank you, Chair. We have a serious environmental pollution of Earth River. Studies have been done by students of various universities in their master's and PhD levels, but also there have been a few requests, individual requests by individual citizens to the government chemist to take some samples from different sites within the Earth River watercourse. And the results have not been very good. They have been bad. And as I've said, this information, much of it is in the public domain. It's in university libraries and other places. And therefore, we are staring at an environmental problem of monumental proportion. However, it is the first time through your committee that a comprehensive analysis chemical analysis of the samples from the Athi River is being sought from the government chemists institutionally. And therefore, I must applaud this committee and the petitioners who have brought this petition before you, because I think time has come for us to face the reality that unless we stem the pollution of our rivers, our water bodies, we are destroying our future. And as I'm going to show from some of the studies, some of the samples which have been examined, some of the chemicals that have been found present in the waters of Athi River are toxic to the level of being what experts call persistent organic pollutants, which means they can be transmitted through the food chain. If they get into the food chain, they can be transmitted even intergenerational, in an intergenerational manner. So we have a major problem of pollution there. Anybody who wants to hide that fact does not think well for our country. Now, as I have said, there have been studies, and also there have been requests to the government chemists by individual citizens to have samples tested. The outcome of some of those studies indicate that the waters of Athi River may be contaminated with possibly municipal waste, that is waste from household, commercial, and demolition waste, hazardous waste from industrial effluents, biomedical waste coming out of clinical waste, and special hazardous waste, some of which could be potentially radioactive, and e-waste. The industrial waste that could form some of those pollutants, some of them actually are heavy metals, is coming from some of the manufacturing industries, including pharmaceutical industries, industries dealing with cosmetics, plastics, synthetic fibers, industries manufacturing paints, cleansing agents, and other consumer projects, which release chemical waste, which eventually find their way into human and environmental systems. As I have said, some of these chemicals may find or have been found to have found their way into the food chain, and this disrupts the biotic cycle and is a major public health hazard. There are also waste from metal industries, food processing industries, pharmaceutical industries, tanneries, pesticides, petroleum industry, mainly, grease and oil acids, and cyanides and other compounds, sulfur compounds, etc., etc. There has also some studies have shown presence of organic chemical industry in terms of components like phenols, high acidity, and alkalinity. Some of the effluents from textile industries, paper and allied product industry, rubber and plastic industry are also responsible for some of the pollutants, which includes hydrocarbons and also heavy metals. The government chemist department has the human capacity and the technical capacity to carry out chemical analysis, not only relating to the pollution of Earth River, but of potentially any other nature that our country may require. Honorable Chair, I didn't believe this until we had a serious security incident in Kilifi County, where we lost hundreds of people in the Shakahola massacre. And so far, the work which has gone on in that scene of crime, including the chemical, DNA, and other analysis of all the 428 bodies recovered, was done by teams of Kenyan agencies led by the government chemist of the Republic of Kenya. There is no single foreign expert. I have seen the work that they have done. It meets international standards. And I am persuaded that the kind of work they've done in that space will help us unearth the truth on what happened in that incident. Therefore, I have taken time to look at the department, and I want to assure you, Chair, this request of an analysis of the pollution over the river is a request that the government chemist department can ably provide answers to. However, Chair, the main challenge in that department has been budgetary allocation. And I know they are constrained. We are trying to support them. We're trying to modernize a little bit of their equipment and usables. But in terms of human capacity, in terms of technical capacity, we have a good department and they can carry out this task. Already, as I have said, a few requests have been made on this subject matter and they have been able to test. But you know, again, for a study to generate, for an analysis to generate the kind of results that would be encompassing and would lead to policy decisions, you need a more detailed analysis, maybe enough sites, enough samples, and that kind of thing. But the challenge has been the budget. Therefore, Honorable Chair, the issue of pollution, the answer is so far, the evidence available is that there is pollution. The issue of whether government chemist has the capacity to carry out an analysis, the answer is yes, with the caveat that the resources may not be adequate. And finally, on the issue of compensation, I would say that perhaps that is a matter, to my mind, that would be best pursued under the Environmental Management and Coordination Act of 1999, which is one of the most robust environmental legislations world over that I know of. The Kenya Environmental Management and Coordination Act of 1991 is extremely robust and extremely exhaustive and will cater for some of these issues. In particular, the polluter pays principle is entrenched in that MCA of 1999, whereby an analysis of this nature, if it is done, resorting to identification of particular polluters, so that you don't just say generally. If it is the chemical, those who are discharging chemical effluents and they are manufacturers, we call them manufacturer A, B, C by name. If it is other sources of pollution, we name them, whether they are companies or individuals. If we visit the polluter pays principle, then our NEMA has the mandate to enforce and penalize businesses. And out of those penalties, then those who may have been affected by the pollution of the river could be compensated. To the best of my mind, that is the framework that perhaps can help us to achieve justice, environmental justice, in the very likely event that some of our people may have been subjected to toxic and polluting substances by unscrupulous business people who violate our environmental laws, discharging toxic pollutants into the river. Mr. Chair and the members, I want to leave it at that. If a request is made, I want to commit, because I've already said there's a budgetary constraint for the department, and it's big. In the event that this committee and the House adopts a request for an analysis, a chemical analysis of appropriately constituted sample of the pollution of this river, then it should only be done after we estimate how much that would cost, and the experts can, even the department can generate that cost, so that the resolution of the committee, if it goes in that direction, and the resolution therefore of the National Assembly, is also alive to the issue that there will be a budget implication. And because the budgeting process is more or less over, I want to undertake to this committee that perhaps if the budget is reasonable, it is one that we can reprioritize from our security operations budget without affecting the already agreed budget, because I think this is a national challenge that requires scientific conclusion and remedial measures before we get so many people affected. So as a ministry, we are willing, if the budget is ascertainable and modest, to do internal reallocations to support the government chemist to carry out a task that may be directed by the committee of the House arising out of this petition. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, CS, for your very elaborate response. At this point, I'll give it to honorable members to interact.
Life for its citizens, and particularly for us in the security docket, it is our responsibility to ensure public safety and is achieved. I agree with the members. However, Chair, I would like to request members to also understand that in matters enforcement of environmental degradation, the lead agency is NEMA. What we do is to support NEMA to enforce the breaches to environmental laws, including the laws that prohibit pollution of water bodies and all the other environmental laws. The lead agency is NEMA, and I'm not trying to shift blame. I'm just trying to say that perhaps we need greater coordination of among ourselves to make sure that we are all working together. In fact, the government chemist really, his mandate is very limited. You need an analysis, it's like almost an academic exercise. It's an intellectual work. We want to know whether this water is pure or is contaminated. And once the results are out, I don't think the matters enforcement, matters of follow-up is the rest of us, the other government agencies. So I think this is how I would suggest we proceed, Chair, because I've been asked, yes, even as we wait for you to conclude this matter and do a report, and if it has budget implications, see where the money will come from, what are we doing, like, immediately? What we will do is that we'll instruct our security, the county security and intelligence teams from the entire riparian counties, the contiguous counties, which are not many. It is Nairobi, it's Machakos, Makueni, all the way to Indian Ocean, at Kilifi, and a bit of Taita Taveta because of Savo East. We'll ask them to give us because at that level, all government agencies, including NEMA, are at that county level represented. We will put together a rapid initiative on how we can scale up the enforcement. And I want to actually be the one to convene those committees, all of them, in my office within the next 1 week. And in the meantime also, now demand from NEMA that they should supply us with the enforcement requests. Because as I've said, maybe, because I'm not privy to that information where I sit, but maybe there are some known sources of this pollution. And maybe the challenge has been to enforce, to help them, or rather to have them stop this discharge. That's what we would do in the interim. But I believe also from the anecdotal evidence that I have received that there are so many even unknown pollutants who have not been brought into the fore. And that's why it's important to really scan the entire watercourse and investigate and even put proper investigative teams, which can be even police-led, to make sure, because it's criminal, these are environmental crimes, so that we are able to map out all the sources of pollution and enforce, as opposed to maybe targeting only one or two known sources of pollution. But in the meantime, those that are already known, established, and complaints have been made, we'll want to sit down with NEMA and have a rapid initiative for enforcement, because the lead agency for environmental enforcement is NEMA. We just supply the enforcement mechanism. And in terms of, for the satisfaction of the committee, I can undertake to do that in 7 days, and through the channels, I can write a written statement of the action we have taken as we wait for your finalization of this process and recommendation.
Chair. Yeah, Honorable Kakesi.
Thank you, Chair.
The results to whoever has asked for them. Their work ends there. In matters of enforcement, as I have said, it is somewhere between the police, national government administration officers, and NEMA and everybody else. And I have said the buck stops here. As the minister responsible for coordination of government functions, the buck stops here. And we'll take up this matter, which I think has been brought this far, and maybe I should come back after a few months to report progress. And Chair, the Honorable Jenze had asked me about compensation, and I had answered earlier by saying that for environmental protection, the easiest and most legal route is to use the Environmental Coordination Act. We have a beautiful legislation, beautiful system. It's just giving life to some of these things. And it's not difficult. Someone needs to be identified as a polluter, as a persistent polluter under the Act, designated as such by NEMA, and then penalized. And those penalties now are used to compensate the victims of, it's just enforcement. So once we establish this, the culprits, and we have a credible evidence-led list, we can move to that discussion under the Environmental Management and Coordination Act.
Thank you, Waziri. I think the insights you have provided and also the concern you've shown is in you are not only trying to
continuously
but most of the requests are from the either industry or the public health or individual people who just want to know their results. So it's something that we keep testing every now and then. It's not specific for the river, but mostly people who are, before they discharge their waste to the river, they bring their samples for us to test so that they can comply with some requirements in the Public Health Act before they discharge them into the river. Some companies do it, that's the number of tests we normally do. And there are also individual people and people who are doing research, as the minister has alluded. There are very many students, when they want to do their research, they use our laboratories for that work. So there is always continuous work. The only thing I'll add is, as the Waziri has said, we are, when somebody submits these samples to us, we give the results to that person. We don't normally share it out. I think it's beyond us. We just, you come for your analysis, we give you your results for your own use. So, but there are so many students, people doing research work for their academic work, that they use our lab to do that work. And then the individual people, especially from the industry and the public health, that are interested in some investigations they're doing. So it's a continuous activity.
Yeah, over and above what the government chemist has said, they are a service department. Even for the criminal justice system, the prosecutors, the DCI, when they want chemical analysis of some substance, they are treated as clients. So they go, they present the samples, they get the results, and that's it. So at least, even as I've said, we do not want to engage in burden shifting. At least I can absorb from the government chemist. They have done their job, and whatever else they will be asked to do, they will do it.
Sure.
But having said that,
Honorable Guest, Order Waziri.
Maybe I should be specific. Have you ever done any test for NEMA, and when was the last one?
NEMA has never submitted samples to us. I can't remember any time they have submitted. Because I think they use our lab as one of the designated, so they send the clients to us when they want test, but they don't do it themselves.
Okay, Waziri, you can carry on.
okay. All right, Chair. Yes, this is a multi-agency effort, and I still maintain that my understanding of the law, NEMA is the lead agency because of the Environmental Management and Coordination Act of 1999, but it is our collective responsibility, all of us in government, to make sure that the law is followed. And we also, as security managers, have a very, very big role in enforcement. So it's for all of us, and where the gaps that are there are gaps that I want to say are gaps that relate to all of us, all the agencies, including national security organs. Yes, it is true that under Executive Order Number 1 of 2023, our ministry is responsible for coordination of all government functions in the counties across the country, and also under the National Government Coordination Act of 2012. And that's why I took the responsibility of convening all the agencies in the counties involved along that water course, particularly to respond to the concern of this commission, of this committee, and this petition. And I'm able to do that in the next 7 days, and perhaps we could be able to develop like a rapid response on remedial measures, even as we wait for long-term recommendations and solutions. I agree with the member who said that as a country, generally, we've been quite reactive in many instances. It's unfortunate, not just in this space of environmental matters, not just in security matters, but in so many matters. And I think it's a national problem. It's not even a problem that you can attach to any particular administration or any particular government agency. It's a national challenge that we have, and we must confront that national challenge from wherever we are. And I think the member who talked about helplessness, I think he misread the minister. We have to do something about it. We cannot appear to be helpless. And therefore, what I am planning to do, both in the short and long term, is to take up this matter with a little more focus and oversight now that it has been brought to our attention. And we will find a way of addressing that problem before it escalates further. I have, when I got this petition, I was able to look at some of the studies that have been done even by private researchers. Some of the findings are not good. They are not good. And to particularly the question which was asked on the presence of carcinogenic pollutants, some of the studies conclude in the affirmative. Some of the studies which I've seen myself, not through my officers, myself, I've seen some of the studies that confirm the presence of lead and other heavy metals and some carcinogenic pollutants. But those are private studies. And you know, Chair, you cannot argue with science. Science is science. Science is not political. Science is science. If a scientist tells you this substance has this chemical, you better believe. It's not like politics where you can have a discussion and a dispute, and you know there are so many colors in politics. But in science, there is only one color, and that color is called evidence. So I have seen that, and I agree with the members that it's alarming, and it's something that I should take up, and we should take up as government. So as to the internal collaboration among the agencies, we will work around that ourselves with NEMA and everybody else, so that we don't come and wash our dirty linen in public. If there are small issues, we are going to resolve them, and I'm going to take responsibility for that synergy on this task and on anything else that we are doing out there. About 6 months ago, Chair, I established a water resources protection police unit in consultations with the Inspector General of the National Police Service. But the conceptualization of the water resources police protection unit was not largely environmental at the point at which that unit was being established. It was to protect critical water infrastructure of our country from security threats. For example, we have certain sources of water or certain water treatment facilities, which, if contaminated, or if criminals have access to them, they can have devastating effects on the country and public health and public safety. So that unit, I'm now beginning to be persuaded that perhaps we can expand the mandate of that unit, not only to protect the critical water infrastructure, like Sasumwa Dam and other sources where large populations get their water from, but also to extend their protection to protecting critical water bodies from pollution. And this problem is not in so many places. Especially the hazardous kind of pollution. is in urban centers and water courses that are traversing urban centers because of industries and so forth. The other rural rivers, the pollution is there, but the toxicity, the level of toxins, the level of pollution, the level of the environmental damage is greater for rivers that are passing through areas which are have an accumulation of industries and other manufacturing plants. So perhaps we will review as an interim measure the mandates and scope of the Water Resources Police Protection Unit to move beyond the protection of critical infrastructure of water resources to include protection from pollution. Lastly, Chair, a question has been asked as to whether corruption could be a factor in why the enforcement has been weak or ineffective. I think we are all Kenyans, and we know we have a national challenge, and that national challenge is called corruption. And that national challenge is in many sectors, in many agencies, and that is the truth. And from where I sit as the Interior Minister of Kenya, I have had a discussion with all the senior officers in all the state departments and all the agencies in the ministry. And I've made it clear that we must rid ourselves of corrupt practices, whether it is the National Police Service, whether it is Kenya Prison Service, whether it is whatever agency of government. And I think that is where the solution will come from. We must admit we have a national problem, and this national problem will require personal responsibility in whatever spaces we are in to fight it. I'm having a discussion with my officers in the State Department for Immigration because of the nature of our processing of identity documents. And therefore, the commitment that I want to take or to make is to assure the committee, through you, Chair, that we shall have to clean up our agencies from clean corruption from our agencies. We are going to have this discussion. I cannot rule out corrupt officials. I know there are many officials who work very hard for this country. I have been out there, I've seen police officers. Some of them have paid the ultimate price. They have died protecting the country. And those are people who could have taken bribes from terrorists to allow them to cause damage. I've seen, we've buried officers, young men, young people, protecting the country. So let it not be like a blanket condemnation. Even the other departments, even with the National Police Service, with immigration and other agencies, we have good public officials. But the problem, they are few. We have others whose work is to take a little money. If someone is discharging cancerous material into a river, so we will scale up our enforcement. In fact, now that this petition has brought us to this, I will personally, perhaps have my personal engagement across that water course. And I don't think there's anybody untouchable. If anybody is known to be releasing toxic and cancerous material into a river which is being used by Kenyans, that person is on the same category with a terrorist. It's only that their method of causing death is different. So the same way I've managed the other situations which I'm trying to manage, I have an added challenge now of dealing with the environmental terrorists. And you'll see action, Chair, even as we wait for your report. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Waziri. Honorable Shake, you have a concern?
Yeah. Through the chair. First of all, I appreciate the good presentation the Waziri has given us. My question goes to the government chemist.